So again, those of you who have joined us recently, I want to welcome you to the Greater Cincinnati Environmental Educators' first ever Ultimate Educator Expo. We've actually been doing this event for 22 years, but this is the first time we're doing it behind our screens. So all of us are dealing with new formats and we're kind of excited about it. At any time, you can go to our GCEE website to find all kinds of information about our member organizations. We have about 30 organizations and they have information about virtual programs and field trips and activities and grants. All of that can be found by going to www.gc-ee.org. A few housekeeping reminders. If there's any questions, please type them into the Q&A. I'm going to be monitoring this and I will ask our presenters towards the end of their session. Also, we're recording this, so a copy of this and all of our other breakout sessions will be available on our website within 2 weeks of tomorrow. If there's any handouts from any of the upcoming sessions or any of the past sessions, those will also be available on the GCEE website. And again, that address is www.gc-ee.org. So without further ado, I want to introduce again our final, I can't believe it's our last day, animal encounter with Carmen and Bridget. Hi, how are you guys doing?
How are you?
Good. Well, Carmen, I want you to take it away.
Yeah, sure. I hope everybody else is enjoying their time with the Educators Expo so far. I'm so excited to bring you a showstopper of an animal that you're going to meet. Today, though, we are going to talk a little bit about something called inquiry. So I'm sure that so many of you out there are familiar with the word and familiar with the process, but I'd love to spark some ideas for your classroom spaces about virtual or in-person classroom spaces, about how you can introduce the concept of inquiry in a way that doesn't feel so scary potentially for some students who might think of the scientific method and think, whoa, how do I tackle that as a learner who's trying to build confidence and understanding about the world around them. So for us here at the zoo, inquiry is all about understanding that each individual, regardless of how old you are, you could be, a preschooler all the way up to an adult learner, trying to identify and understand how you are always a scientist, right? No matter what your job title is or what you are doing, learning at school, or like I said, the age spread, you have the ability to ask questions about the environment that's around you, about your surroundings, and make observations about those things, and learn from them by looking so closely and wondering, and just constantly wondering and exploring. So for all of our zoo inquiry programs, and honestly infused into most of our programming, we're constantly asking the kiddos to think of themselves as scientists. One of my favorite ways to get kids really engaged with thinking in that way is a little silly. I like to get them to pretend that they're putting on an imaginary scientist cap or get their binoculars on to their face and just pretend like they are looking through those lenses, magnifying glass tube. So those are some ways to get kids just, pretending, and then as they pretend, they realize that it's real for them, right? That they can ask those questions and take ownership of those questions. So I'd like to practice with my showstopper. Her name is Elsa, and I am going to take her out of her carrier over here by just opening the door and allowing her the choice to come on out. Some of you might be able to hear her already too. So Elsa is one of our favorite animals to do inquiry with at the Cincinnati Zoo, and our virtual programming as well, because she loves to explore the world around her. So Bridget, my wonderful videographer, is going to get some good shots of Elsa checking out her environment, which is just one of our classroom spaces here at the zoo. And I am throwing down some things for Elsa to eat. Now, I'd like to start with you all in the same way that I would start with some kids that are meeting Elsa for the very first time. And I'm going to ask you to make some observations about her. So the way I would ask kids to think about what they notice about Elsa is I would say something like, what do you see? I want you to look carefully at Elsa and identify for me something that you see about her, something that you notice. And for some kids, it comes to them very quickly, right? I noticed that she has feathers. I noticed that her feet are very long, her toes are long. I noticed that she's using her beak to eat lettuce off of the ground. And for some kids, they might be a little shy about expressing what they see or notice about this animal, right? So to allow time and space for the kids to really think, sometimes I'll ask the kids to remain quiet instead of shouting out their guesses or their thoughts. You know, maybe they keep their eyes, their scientist eyes on Elsa, but they keep their mouths closed so that everyone has a chance to think in their head something that they noticed. And then, once everyone has had a good period of time to just think quietly and notice by looking, perhaps they can share aloud to the whole group, you know, after just a few minutes of looking. Now, I'm not going to give so much time for looking like I would in a classroom, but you guys can imagine that if you were doing this in your classroom spaces, even if you weren't looking at Elsa, you could look at so many other things around, outside in nature, or on a screen, or even just around in the classroom that is living or non-living. You could even be looking at each other to figure out things that you notice about something. And you can give so much time to think, depending on the attention span of the kids that you're working with, you know, varying degrees of amount of contact time that you have with these kids as well. And so is it something that they're logging their observations by writing and coming back day after day about, say, for example, the activity about a tree outside of the classroom window? Now with Elsa, I would ask the question next. I would ask them, based on the observations that you've made, that you're noticing about her, what's something that you really would like to know about her? And that would help spur some questions in their brain, like, oh, how old is she? Oh, what does she like to eat? Oh, where was she born? Those are really, really great questions, right? And those are questions that I could give really quick answers to, but I'm looking for a different kind of question. Something that doesn't just have a quick answer, like Elsa is 6 years old. I'm looking for questions that we can collect some information about by continuing to watch Elsa. So, a question like, I wonder if Elsa likes lettuce more from this side of the room or from that side of the room. I wonder if Elsa maybe has a preference for blue colors or green colors. Things like that we can notice by watching her for longer periods of time. And the longer that we watch her, the more curious we may become, and we may have even more and more questions. And I just always encourage the kids that there is no bad question. And there are ways that we can answer almost all of the questions, but to really think about questions that we can answer here in our time together, based on the things that we have here around us. So one of my favorite ones to do with Elsa the chicken is all about her favorite foods, because she really does like to eat. You can see she's trying to check out what I've got here, right? So you see that there's lettuce that's all around that I've been giving her to munch on. And you can also notice that she's got other things like bugs that she can eat too. And I threw out a couple different bugs. I threw out a worm that she eats so fast. And I threw out a cricket. Wow, you can see that when there's crickets and worms involved, she really, really loses focus on those pieces of greens. So it makes me wonder if maybe she has a preference there, right? And you can imagine that we can collect some data by really watching and observing her. After we've spent some time collecting some data, we might think about some more things like, what can we do with the information that we now have? And was the thing that we were thinking would be true supported by what we saw? She is loving those bugs. So those are the types of things that we do here at the Cincinnati Zoo with the animals that love to be, you know, watched by all the friends, virtually or in person, that they could potentially meet. But as you can imagine, there are so many ways that you could incorporate this kind of encouragement of exploration and being a scientist-minded individual in your own world, even if you don't have access to Elsa the chicken, right? So maybe you spend some time thinking about how can you get kids to really be noticing, questioning the things around them, and thinking about making predictions, collecting some data, and then sharing their findings with each other or with other people too. Now, I know I'm nearing the end of my time talking with all of you, but I would love to hear some questions if there are any. So Gwen, let me know if there's any questions that are in the chat box or anything you'd like to know too about our adorable chicken friend.
So Carmen, we did have a couple questions about how can teachers in this virtual world, or can they still bring their students to the zoo, or are you doing everything virtually? How's that working now?
That's a really good question. So you can still do both. So we do have field trips where you can come to the zoo still in person, but it is self-guided. So you wouldn't necessarily get to meet Elsa in that experience, but you get to see a lot of other fun zoo animals, right, like Fiona. And we do have virtual options that would allow for you to have an experience like this with Elsa. And in fact, we do have our virtual Zoo on the Move program. That's what we call our classroom experiences like this, where kids can see up close, just like this on our video screen. That is live for anyone to sign up for. And we actually have a lot of fun programs on there that are based on academic state standards. And we do have some thoughts around launching inquiry coming up. So if you're interested in this particular program, keep your eyes posted on our website and opt in for our Email. We send newsletters out too, so when things are available to sign up for.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much, Carmen. And I think that's Bridget behind the video camera. Thank you both. You guys did an amazing job. And thank you also to Elsa. And we look forward to coming to the zoo and meeting some of the other animals, even if it's not Elsa.
She'll be around.
Thanks, ladies. Okay, so before we switch over to our final presenter, just want to remind everybody, if you have any questions for our next presenter, just please type those into the Q&A, and we will make sure that we get those asked. And we're also recording this session, so a copy of this session and any other session we had will appear on the GCEE website within 2 weeks of today. And at the end of this session, I promise I will try and remember, we will be giving out a door prize. So we'll call out somebody's name. You have to be present to win. And if there's any handouts, any information, any contact that you want about any of our members, you can do that by going to the GCEE website at www.gc-ee.org. And without any further ado, I would like to introduce our last but not our least breakout session presenter. We have with us today our amazing guest, Faye from National Geographic. So Faye, you want to introduce yourself and take it away?
Yeah, hi, thank you so much, Gwen. I'm super excited to be here with you today. My name is Faye Gore, and I am the Mid-Atlantic Regional Director on the education team at National Geographic. And I have to say, for those of you who don't know, that I actually work on the nonprofit side of National Geographic. So all of our resources are absolutely free, and I'm not on the for-profit side. So I just had to put that out there for you. I am super excited to share with you a resource that I hope you will find as engaging and as excited about it as I am. So I'm going to share my screen now, and Gwen, if there are any questions in the chat, I might not be able to see them, so if you could just let me know. And I'll just say that if you have any questions at any time, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat, and I will also leave some time at the end for your questions. So I just want to make sure that everybody can see my screen. So Gwen, if you could let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen. It's a National Geographic Society education with a couple people looking at a plant.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I just also wanted to call attention to my email address. So you can please feel free to reach out to me at any time. It's C as in Charles Gore at ngs.org. Don't be shy about reaching out. If you have any questions about this particular resource that I'm going to share, anything I say in this presentation, or if you want to know more about our programming, not just resources, but professional development opportunities. So I'm going to jump right in here. And so this session today is really about how we use our award-winning Explore magazine to lean into literacy. So I'm going to share a few things about what we've learned over the last few years as we were refining our Explore magazine in consultation with a national expert, and then how our magazine actually supports those literacy standards. And I know in Ohio, you have some very robust English language arts standards, and you'll see a lot of alignment to our Explore magazine and the standards that you actually are expected to deliver in the classroom. But I also wanted to say that this resource is not just for teachers in the classroom, but it's also for folks who might be in other learning spaces, non-formal educators, even the zoo, right? So I wanted to start out just by sharing a little bit about us as an organization and what we're trying to do and how this fits into what we hope to present to you today. And so National Geographic, as I said before, on the nonprofit side, we pride ourselves on using the power of science, technology, education, and storytelling to both illuminate and protect the wonders of the world. And in education, we like to take that a step further and pride ourselves on really digging into teaching kids about the world and how it works so that we can inspire them to use all the skills and knowledge that they have to make the world a better place. And through using the Explorer magazine is one way they can build that content knowledge and skill development so that they can lean into that as a noble mission. And so we do this also by our National Geographic Explorer mindset, and hopefully you'll see some of the connections to literacy here. And so we say this is the ASK model, A-S-K. It's the attitude, skills, and knowledge areas that we believe students need to acquire in order to take on that Explorer mindset and build empathy for the earth. So I'll tell you just a little bit about this Explorer mindset, and then we'll dive into the magazine. So as you know, kids are naturally curious, especially at the elementary level. They ask all kinds of questions. They want to explore. They want to inquire about the world around them. And that through that exploration, we are hoping that they would want to take more responsibility for the planet, both the natural world and the human journey. Then through that curiosity, when it's sparked and sustained, then wanting to take responsibility for the planet, then that empowers them to make a positive change for the planet. We also know that kids need to acquire a certain set of skills in order to take on this Explorer mindset. So those observation skills, and it was so apropos that the zoo had their chicken there and making observations about chicken behavior. So we want kids to make observations around them, both in their communities, in their schools, in all the spaces that they occupy. But the literacy component is to become an effective communicator. And if you think about National Geographic, the larger magazine and the channel, all the work that our explorers do, they are effective communicators. They know how to tell a compelling story through words, through writing, through images, through videos. So really communicating, and all of those literacy skills that you focus on as well, reading, writing, speaking, listening, and so forth. We also want kids to be able to collaborate and problem solve. And then finally, we have 3 knowledge areas that we focus on that we really feel like if kids can dig into this kind of content, that they will really uncover more about both the human world and the natural world. And so we focus a lot of our work, and you'll see the articles in the magazine that I'll share in just a moment, focuses on 3 categories of topic areas: the human journey, how our planet is changing, and the conservation and protection of wildlife and wild places. And so with those 3 things, we are really teaching kids about the world. And so I'm happy to share that in working with one of our National Geographic fellows from 2018, Stephanie Harvey, who is an internationally known literacy expert, she helped us think more about how we can improve our magazine to focus on really content literacy through thinking and active engagement. So what I'm going to share with you in just a moment, you'll see some of these areas of how you can help build comprehension skills through getting kids to ask more poignant questions, making inferences around the maps and the images and the arts, the charts and graphs that you'll see in the magazine, by making kids become really conversant in that background content, giving them opportunities to debate, to inquire, and to actually use all of that knowledge to create and to make things and generate new ideas. And so there's one framework, and I'll share in just a moment an article that Stephanie Harvey wrote that kind of lays out what she calls this researcher's workshop, but we like to call the Explorer workshop. So for those of you who have used the Readers Writers workshop as a tool to dig into content area literacy, there are 4 phases that she proposes. And I want you to wrap your mind around this for just a moment so that when you get into the magazine that you can see opportunities for these specific pieces. So we know, as I said before, that kids are naturally curious, right? They really want to know how the world works. And so one of the ways that we spark and sustain that curiosity is by helping kids explore topics that they might not be familiar with, or if they do have some base surface knowledge of it, they can dig deeper into those particular topics. And then they start to investigate by asking questions. Where is that? I want to know more about this. right? And they're using a variety of text and photographs and videos and charts and maps and so forth. And then we want kids, even in the kindergarten grade, to begin to organize this information in some way, so that they can start to think about, what does all of this mean, right? How can I organize it to make sense of it? But also, how do I know that these resources are accurate, right? And hopefully you guys know that National Geographic does a whole lot of research when they put things into the magazine. So hopefully you'll see this as a valid source. But as kids are thinking about the content that is in the magazine, and that you add layers of other sources, then kids can also then see, I read that in the magazine, I wonder if that's true. And then finally, the most important piece for us is, as they're digging into content around a topic, that it also inspires them to take action, to do something with the information that they've acquired. So with that said, Explore Magazine. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how it's structured, and then I'm going to give you about 5 to 7 minutes to do some exploration on your own, and then we're going to come back together and talk about what you uncovered about the magazine and see if you have any questions about that. So I'm going to pause for a moment and see if there's any questions so far.
So Faye, we don't have any questions yet in the Q&A.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so just a couple minutes to show you how this is structured and how it's organized and how you can find the actual literacy strategies in these resources. So we have kind of 2 phases of this magazine, and this is all free, by the way. The first is what we call Young Explorer, as you see on the screen on the left. That's the kindergarten and grade 1 version. Kindergarten called Scout, grade 1 called Voyager. We were very specific about this because in the past we had print versions of this magazine, and what you'll find is that the content of these 2 versions, kindergarten and grade 1, has the same exact content. The difference is the text complexity is different. The Lexile Lexiles are different. So that if you have a student, a learner who is in kindergarten but reading on the 1st grade level, you can actually give them the Voyager magazine, or you can see that progression. The same holds true for grade 2 to grade 5 or 6. The content is the same, the Lexile levels are different. And this is a good way to differentiate for the different learners that you have in the classroom, and they will not be the wiser because you won't see the grade level on the particular magazine. In this case, the digital version will have just those headers like Pioneer, Trailblazer, Pathfinder, etc. And one of the things that you'll find when you access the digital version is that not only can kids obviously read the magazine and see the beautiful, amazing photographs that are there, but it also has a read aloud function, as well as allowing kids to highlight text, right? So as you're starting to annotate text, kids are able to do that. And for those kids who are struggling readers, they get to also listen and hear the words. And there's also pop-up vocabulary where kids can mouse over and click on the words, and it will give them the definitions of those particular words. Also, one of the things that helps support literacy with this magazine is, as I already talked about, the fact that it has some amazing photographs that will engage kids and keep them wanting more. We also have various types of text material in there, including infographics, and of course the National Geographic Secret Sauce map. So kids can locate things on the map, and it gives them a context as they are actually reading the magazine or listening to the magazine. The other feature I wanted to point out is that we have articles that feature very diverse National Geographic explorers from around the world. So it gives some unique content and context to what the topic that the kids might be exploring, and it gives them access to what National Geographic explorers do in their day-to-day work. which is also another piece that might keep them engaged in the reading. And then finally, I wanted to point out that starting with our August, September versions of the digital magazine, that we also have those in Spanish. So this should be particularly helpful for those students that you have who are have English as a second language, but also for dual immersion programs. You have the opportunity for kids. You'll notice that the content will be the same, it's just translated into Spanish. And this includes all the maps, the charts, the graphs, etc. Everything will be in Spanish. So that's super exciting. And then lastly, there is a teacher guide that accompanies every single one of the magazines of the edition. You can download these particular guides. You can share particular like worksheets, print those off for kids if you are in person, but you can also recreate these things so that you can share them in whatever platform that you have if you are in a virtual environment. So with that said, I want you to go to exploremag.org. This is the site for the Explore magazine, and then I'll walk you through a few features of this site, and then I will give you some time to explore, and then we'll come back to see if you have any questions. So I'm gonna give you just a moment to go to exploremag.org. And I'll have to rely on my teacher wait time to make sure that you are there. It should look just like this page, exploremag.org. And I'm gonna get out of this because I'm actually here. And I'm gonna pull up one. To get to where you are. So what you'll notice about this site is there's no password required. It's absolutely free. You can download issues and you'll see how their breakdown is by kindergarten through grade 5, 6. You can search by school year. You can search by issue. What I am going to actually do is just show you just a couple things. So you can see all of the magazines for a particular grade level, and you can select that so that you can see the content of each of the magazines. And for purposes of this demonstration, I'm actually going to go to the Trailblazer grade 3. And so once you get to one of the magazines, you'll notice that in the issue, it'll tell you what the lexile is for each of the articles that's featured. It's about 2 to 3 articles, some with social studies based content, some with science-based content, but they're always English language arts lessons embedded in here with strategies. And so you can actually share with your students a link to the magazine that you want them to read for that particular lesson. And the other thing that you need to know, in addition to sharing the link, you also need to give them the password so that they can access it. Again, this is all free, but you know, it's just so that kids can get the exact magazine that you want them to be able to review, or you can share the QR code with them in any format structure that you have already set up. And notice that below are all the teacher's guides that are associated with that particular magazine. So I'm gonna pretend that I clicked on the English digital version. And I happen to be at the plastics article. And so I want to show you a couple of features. One is, I mentioned before,
National Geographic, Explorer, Trailblazer.
Notice that that's the sound, so that for those kids who need that extra support and want to hear the actual magazine, but it's super easy for kids to navigate. They just simply click on the arrows to the right, and they can access the articles there. Notice that there are 3 articles in this particular edition. I'm going to actually go to the plastics one and notice the vivid content. And there's always something for kids to do to think about before they actually jump into the article. So before you read, there's always some question or some connection. Notice I shared with you earlier our learning framework. There's some connection to one of those aspects of the learning framework. This one happens to be the human journey, focused on science and engineering, and it gives some kids some context for things for them to think about in terms of what they can solve in this particular issue. So if you click on to the next article, here you'll notice like how there's engaging photographs that just slide in, and I'm just using my mouse to scroll through. But you'll notice also that here's what I was saying about the vocabulary for kids who might not know exactly what plastic is. There is the link for them to be able to get the definition of that particular word. And I'm just scrolling through. You'll see all the highlights there. And embedded in this particular article is a video that kids can listen to. Scrolling through, you'll see some of the data that kids will see, and it gives them context with a map. Just sharing a few of these features with you, and I'm just scrolling through so that you can see. And there's always some type of like activity or a different way or strategy that kids can use to access information. So this particular one is not just reading about the different types of things that can be recycled, but it gives kids an interesting way to think about this particular content, where they can click on, they're looking at the type, and then they have an image that also has data associated with it. So that's the magazine, an example, but I also want you to see what the actual guide looks like. So in the guide, you will notice that it gives you, again, the Lexile levels. It gives you the standards that it's aligned to. And I must say that we don't align to any particular set of state standards, but we, in general, align to the Common Core or support the Common Core, the Next Gen Science Standards, and the C3 framework for social studies. But as I took a look at your Ohio standards, you will see a lot of this alignment there. We start out by giving you some ways that we support this learning framework, this attitude of Explorer that I mentioned to you earlier. It shows you the language arts standards that it's connected to, as well as gives you exactly what you can say in terms of lessons that you want to do with students in the classroom or in your virtual environment. And then you'll also see some science and social studies strategies. Here is a strategy that just supports the ELA stuff, but we keep scrolling through. Just want to show you the articles that are science related. You'll see specific ways to support students in there, where you're using the 5E kind of lesson plan, where you engage, explore, explain, elaborate and evaluate. And it gives you the background on the science, and then it gives you assessment tools that you can use, so forth and so on. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a highlight around what the Explorer Magazine guide looks like. And then I'm going to go back and give you I'm going to pause for a minute to see if you have questions and give you a few minutes to explore while I go back to the PowerPoint. And as you're exploring, I'm hoping that what you will do in the chat is just share some of the things that you found in the magazine in terms of teaching tools that sparked your curiosity in ways in which you think it might align to your own curriculum. So I'm going to give us about 4 or 5 minutes for you to explore. I'll check to see if you have any questions, and then we'll come back together to close out.
So Faye, while teachers are exploring that, we did have some questions pop up while you were showing us that website.
Sure.
And somebody was a little bit amazed. Did she actually say that thing is free?
Free, it's all free. In fact, I'll go back. Yeah, in case you have some questions, I can go through something here. Yes, it's absolutely free. And that's why I'm just like over the moon. I must admit, I love a book. As you can see, all my children's books behind me. I love the actual print magazines, but the fact that we're able to make this absolutely free, only in the digital form, we will no longer be printing magazines, is absolutely phenomenal to me. So all of it's free.
And that was another question that somebody came up. Can they get physical copies for their classroom, or all of these are now available digital?
They're all only available digitally. We did the last print versions that we had. I think we shipped them out this summer for summer reading. And so the reason why we can make them free is because we're no longer printing them. Right. That was the cost. And so when they were subscription based, they were at cost, but as you can imagine, it still costs a lot to be able to print and ship and those types of things. So now it's all available, all free.
And another question we had pop up is, are all of them, all the past digital copies available? And will they be available essentially forever? Or is it every year you do new stuff and take old stuff down, or how's that going to work?
Right, so they go back to the 2016 edition. So from 2016 to now and moving forward, they will be available until they're not. And so I can't say right now we plan to have them all, except I don't see any in the foreseeable future that we will take them down. If anything, they might be merged with our larger resource library. If you're not familiar with of that, if we have time, I can share that with you, or I could go ahead and probably send you the links and then you can share it out with the group. But right now we plan to have them all accessible for the foreseeable future.
Awesome. Well, as everybody is wrapping up their exploration and coming back, I do want to announce our door prize winner for this session. So I have picked the name Gabrielle. Gabrielle, if you are in, if you will just put something in the Q&A, hey, I'm here, I'm still around, whatever. And we will make sure to get that door prize to you. So again, Gabrielle, if that's you, if you will, oh, I see something pop up in the Q&A. She says, I'm here. So Gabrielle, what we will do is we will use the email that you put into Zoom today. We will contact you through that, and we will get your information over to Faye, and she can send the door prize directly to you.
Oh, congratulations.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Well, Faye, I want to thank you so very much for joining us today. It was absolutely fabulous. And as Faye mentioned, she said there's going to be some links and stuff like that. We can make sure all of those links get onto our GCEE website. So everything that is there, everything that Faye talked about, will get up on our website so you guys have quick access to it right away. So Faye, thank you so very much for joining us today. I'm so sorry we couldn't do this in person and give you a big hug, but you have virtual hugs.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was super exciting. I know that was fast, but I'll share the PowerPoint as well.
Oh,
and
fabulous.
If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Faye. And we hope to see you again in person real soon.
Yes, take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So amazingly, that wraps up our 22nd Greater Cincinnati Environmental Educators Ultimate Educator Expo. First time you've ever tried this digitally, virtually, and I hope you guys really enjoyed. I hope you learned some stuff. I hope you were able to grab some resources. Again, anytime, please go to our website. That is www.gce-ee.org. All of our members' contact information is available on that website. The recordings of all of these breakout sessions will be available on that website. And finally, if you need a certificate of participation, you may go to that website on the left-hand side, click on 2020 breakout sessions, and then click on certificate of participation. We will verify your attendance against the Zoom webinar attendance list, and we will send you a certificate within 2 weeks. Give us some time to get that all organized. But I want to thank you again, all of our presenters, all of our attendees, all of the zoo presenters, and all of those fabulous animal encounters. We had an absolutely wonderful time, and we hope you guys were able to learn and gather some new resources, and we hope to see you guys again in the future, both virtually and in person. Have a great day.